Another constructive problem is, of course, babies having babies. Um, United States has more teen pregnancies than any industrialized nation. That's a really, really interesting statistic. It's thought that teen pregnancy was commonplace in the United States, but that's not the case. It's a more recent phenomenon. And as our societies become more complex, as our societies require more income to support families, teenagers having babies becomes even more of a problem because they most likely don't have the job skills to immediately step into the job market and earn a wage that's going to make having a family uh, doable, if you will. So, what that means is they're going to lean on their family members, mothers and fathers, extended family, to help during the lean times. And it's going to put them back in significant ways economically that they're going to have a hard time recovering from over the course of the family. Fatherlessness is, of course, another problem. Uh, Not having a father in the home is problematic for many reasons. The role model that the father plays in gender development, sharing the responsibilities within the household are important, of course, but it doesn't mean that the father is necessary as part of the family unit. You can have two moms, a lesbian household, and they create stable children just as easily as a mother and father would. Economically, the availability of the father is extremely important. That is, if the father is adding to the support of the family, whether during the marriage or after the marriage. In the United States, in excess of 40%, I think it was 43% of uh, divorced fathers do not pay child support. Fail to pay their child support, should I say. They're supposed to pay child support, but they fail to pay their child support. This is significantly higher than many of its European counterparts that are usually somewhere around 20%, 25%. And the absence of time, not only do they not pay child support, but they also don't give time to their children either. Another constructive problem is same-sex partnering, same-sex parenting. This is a constructive problem because it's perceived that children raised by same-sex parents are somehow going to be dysfunctional or more likely to be gay. And this is a problem for some people, but it's a constructive problem because it turns out that that's actually not what happens. Research is starting to show that children coming out of same-sex marriages are more stable. Girls coming out of same-sex marriages are more assertive. Boys coming out of same-sex marriages are more willing to be flexible with their gender constructions. They're more stable. This is one of those places where I'm going to read a quote from the book because I think it encapsulates this this idea, and it speaks to the misconception that somehow same-sex partners are going to be bad parents. It says, a study in New Jersey found that children in gay and lesbian families emerge better equipped to search out their own standards of right and wrong, better able to perceive that the majority is not always correct in its moral judgment, and better able to understand the importance of conforming their beliefs to the requirements of reason and tested knowledge, not the constraints of currently popular sentiments or prejudice. That says it all, folks. I mean, in my mind, those are the types of kids that we're trying to socialize, trying to create that move into society, being less judgmental and more willing to accept diversity and difference. The idea that same-sex parenting is producing deviance, if that's deviance, then we need some more deviance. Divorce is, of course, a problem, but not the type of problem that you might think. Many people choose to stay in marriages that are unhappy because they don't want, they believe, they don't want their children to be adversely affected. And they believe that the form of the marriage, i.e. the father and mother together, or the mother and mother together, because I'm sure this works out in divorces with same-sex parents as well. But they believe that the form of them being together is more important than the content of the marriage itself. And so they choose to stay together, and the arguments, the verbal and physical abuse of spouses and children continue to go unchecked, and the content of the marriage proves to be more problematic than the form itself. So yes, divorce is a problem for the structure of the family, but sometimes divorcing improves, in many cases, it improves the family structure over time, because that angst, that conflict is removed from the family, and the family reorganizes itself in a more stable fashion as it moves forward. Ultimately, the problem with divorce is more a problem for males. It's related to fatherlessness within the family structure. But as women gain position in society, as women gain the tools necessary to succeed in society on their own, the power that men possess over women, especially the power that they possess over them within the form of marriage, is lessened. And when women are given choices, sometimes they choose to get out of their marriages. Historically, they couldn't escape the marriage because they didn't have the human capital to step out into the marketplace and sustain themselves. But now they have that human capital, and they're exercising it, and it's giving them a newfound power that is changing the power dynamics within the marriage itself. That brings us to child custody. Historically, women have been the child rearers. They've been in charge of the private domain. They've been in charge of raising the children, and so they've been given the responsibility of raising those children in a divorce, which then in turn made men more responsible financially through child support. But as I mentioned earlier, approximately 43% of the men in divorced or that men that have been divorced in the United States do not pay their child support. So child custody and child support are very much in flux and very much in question in the United States right now. As men lose their power over women, they're arguing for fathers' rights, as if they are somehow on the problematic end of inequality in this relationship. And it's creating problems for women as well. One of the interesting historical realities of child custody was before the Industrial Revolution, if there was a divorce, children were seen as economic goods. The more children you could put out on the farm, the more economically viable your farm would be, and the more value those children would have to the family. Well, when children were economic goods, they were usually awarded custody to the father. But as we moved into the Industrial Revolution and the world of work left the private sphere and moved out into the public sphere of businesses, corporations, organizations like that, children all of a sudden became a leisure good. And when they became a leisure good, the courts began to award women the custody of children. So when they're an economic good, they get awarded to men. When they're a leisure good, they get awarded to women. And that has serious impacts on the overall development of children in the American family. Another problem with gender in the family is family violence. Violence is a common topic throughout this course. As things go wrong, there's a real fine line between love and hate, and as the marriage begins to deteriorate, that generally leads to partner violence. So whether that's physical or verbal abuse, it also leads to child abuse. Two very common and very problematic realities of failing marriages, and we also see elder abuse within the family as well, as it becomes our responsibility to take care of our parents, whether those parents are taken care of within your own household or you put them in old folks' homes or medical institutions. The reality is that they can find themselves abused, and often do. So that brings us to the family of the future. The family will change. The most consistent findings to emerge in that is that the form of the family matters as much as its content. What children need, or is that, no, I'm sorry, is it, what is most consistent is that the form is less important than its content. This is something that is very different than what we thought of in the past. So what children need most is a warm, concerned relationship with at least one parent. In order to accomplish this, we're going to need family-friendly workplace policies. We're going to need direct resources to low-income families, regardless of the form of those families. And we're going to need changing roles of men and women that recognize equality and egalitarianism in the family form.